of the video-based app A Starting Point. It was created by Hollywood stars Chris Evans and Mark Kaysen and tech entrepreneur Joe Kiani back in 2017 and officially launched in July of 2020. All three co-founders join us now. Good morning to you all, gents. Here, Chris, let me start with you, though. You're a busy guy. You're out there filming movies here. What made you get involved with this new venture?
Just trying to use my platform in a helpful manner, I suppose. Trying to create engagement, trying to get people more comfortable with the world of politics. I think we don't have nearly enough interaction in our country with the political process, and I think part of that is because it's an overwhelming landscape.
I think the idea of the site is a noble one. You guys are coming up with some questions I think we all have, we might not be clear about, and you're putting them to our leaders in Washington and giving them a platform to speak directly to us. I know you launched in July. Mark, what are your numbers like? And I'd love to know how many folks have registered to vote through your platform, because I know that's one of your main objectives.
Yeah, thank you very much. We've had in about, 3 months, about 330 million engagements across all of our content. We've registered over 10,000 people to vote. You can also contact your rep directly. Over 100,000 people have contacted their rep through our site that we know of. The folks that choose to go and look up information on our site, go elsewhere and continue on. We don't track, but directly through our site, about 330 million engagements, and then 100 or so thousand people have contacted their rep.
Joe, I've been watching a lot of these videos. Really, it's just really great work. I do think you guys are onto something here. What has it been like? How have you been getting some of these interviews? I imagine you have to win over the trust of lawmakers.
Yeah, I think that's been critical. And I think at the beginning, it was a little hard because they did not know what our intentions might be, especially the worry that, what if this is just something we're in and out of, we're not serious about. But secondly, given some of the ways we individually lean, I think there was a worry that we might be biasing what we're presenting. And it didn't take long, but they quickly realized that, no, we're going to lay a framework for both parties to speak on the same issues and let people decide which way they think is the right way.
I want to bounce off that because this is being billed as a nonpartisan civic engagement site. And Chris, I know that you've been pretty vocal on Twitter and elsewhere about your dislike of President Trump and his administration. So how do you sort of reconcile, your personal politics with your involvement in A Starting Point?
Sure, by being transparent about it, by owning that, by acknowledging it and not pretending that I don't have personal opinions, but that the goal of this site is to prioritize engagement. And in order to do that, you have to remove your personal opinions. And if the end game is to try and let politics work the way we hope it all could, it's about not injecting my personal opinions and letting elected officials communicate their beliefs to their constituents and letting American people make their own decisions.
Mark, are you getting any indications from all the politicians you do talk to that this polarization we've seen arguably for 8 to 10 years, is it going to stop? Is it going to get better at any point?
Well, I don't know if we can get an indication, but they all tell us they want it to, and they all have different opinions. In fact, excuse me, one of the questions that we asked pretty much everybody in the first 3 years when we were going to DC over 2.5 years was could we do to improve, or what could they do to improve bipartisanship? And all of them had opinions. And most of them had to do with empathy and finding ways to communicate individually. A lot of them critique the media in stoking a conversation about divisiveness and not talking about the things that they were trying to do, whether that's the actual issue or not, who's to say. But they seem to all want to find ways to at least herald what they were trying to do. A really interesting example actually was we had a counterpoint, which is our version of a debate or a conversation around an issue between Dave McKinley, who's a Republican from West Virginia, and Kurt Schrader, who's a Democrat from Oregon, on environment. One's from a coal area and one's from an area with wildfires. And they both had opinions about what was causing those and if we should or should not be in the Paris Accord. But they really wanted to focus on how they could work together to find a way to balance not losing jobs in the fossil fuel industry while bringing up technology in our country. And so they really are trying to find ways to deal with that. And they spend a lot of time on our site talking about that.
Joe, you've been around a lot of big tech companies. You've got companies like Google and Facebook struggling with reining in misinformation on their sites, especially as it relates to the election. How do you tackle that at a starting point? Do you feel a responsibility at all to have to rein in this misinformation?
We do, and we are sensitive to not just let anyone say whatever they want to say on the site if it's untrue. If it's true, they're welcome to it. So we do some level of fact checking. We don't do it ourselves. We have another group who does it for us. But at the end of the day, the facts should be the facts, and people should have different viewpoints of them. But we don't want people to portray things that are not true.
But also, if I could speak to that, the disinformation that you talk about comes from other folks infiltrating the mechanism. Our mechanism is closed. The contributors are elected officials, so they're very easy to track down. So there's not really a room for someone. We don't have likes or dislikes on our site. We don't have message boards on our site. So there's not really a way for someone to galvanize a base for or against or sway what people are actually saying. If you don't like what they're saying, you know exactly who's saying it.
Yeah, well said.
Chris, now as you've gotten to know some of these politicians and talk with them, are you surprised that we still have no stimulus plan?
Yeah. No, because again, to inject a little bit of my personal opinion, we have someone in the White House whose main goal is to create division. So I'm not surprised that we can't find commonality, and that's what this site is hoping to rage against.
Chris, since we have you, we've got to talk about the state of Hollywood during this pandemic. Came to a grinding halt, as many industries did, starting to come back now. What have things been like working in Hollywood during this pandemic? What's it been like for you?
Slow. It's tricky. I mean, everyone's kind of on pause right now, and I will say that Hollywood is slowly making steps in the right direction of going back to work. I have a few friends who are in productions right now, and there's a lot of overhead trying to make sure that they can work safely during this time. But hopefully, it's not too much longer before things can get back to normal. At least within my industry, I suppose. I mean, I know everyone's in for a lot of challenges, which is a tough pill to swallow.
Yeah, and we all need the distractions. So we want you guys to go out there and make these movies and these TV shows. I read that you're going to be in Little Shop of Horrors, the remake of it. Can you share anything about that with us?
Yeah, The Dentist. God, boy, that's so exciting. I'm thrilled to be a part of that. Again, this is all. It's one more job that's kind of up in the air right now because I think a lot of people have a lot on their plate. So hopefully that goes next year, sometime in the summer, and I really can't wait.
Chris, are you still bullish on movie theaters? Really, they continue to close down, but it's such a key avenue for the Hollywood industry.
Yeah, wouldn't that be a heartbreaker if that goes away? I don't know. I mean, again, I'm ever sanguine that things will equalize and get back to some sort of recognizability. I don't know how and I don't know when, but I'm hopeful.
But I'm really curious. I said to you guys, is this a for-profit venture, and how do you make money if it is?
Now that's a good question.
Let you know how you make money. I get for-profit. You have to take in money. I think. I mean, Joe has more experience with this than we probably do. We haven't quite worked that piece out, but we intend to. I mean, we really drilled down on making sure we had a mechanism that could deal with things that go on, like the Supreme Court hearings, and be relevant to elected officials and make sure that people wanted to pay attention to us. If that happens, if we're relevant, then eventually we'll find a way to work with probably either other media organizations or other financial institutions to grow, which we'll eventually need to do if this continues to grow, because we can only handle so much. And as Chris just said, he will get back to doing movies eventually, and then we'll need to actually find ways to support ourselves and have other people help work on this.
All right, let's leave it there, guys. Chris Evans, Mark Casson, and Joe Chiani. Good to see you, and really founders of A Starting Point. I think you guys are on to something. This website. It's a great visit.
Thank you so
much. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Bye-bye.
Bye.